Hello, I'm Brent Campbell. I'm the proud owner of a 2008 E60 BMW M5 with a 6-speed manual transmission. I posted a video a few months ago titled, "Can you afford an E46 BMW M3?" And my answer was emphatically yes. They're very affordable. And it was funny, is almost immediately after I posted the video, there were comments asking, well, so do a video like that for the M5? And I wasn't going to do this video because it's not it's not affordable. If you have to ask that question with regards to an E60 M5, you can't afford it. Truly, I don't think anybody concerned about the cost on an M5 should get one. Now, having said that, if you want nothing more than to have the ultimate Uber sedan 4-door German car, this is the one. There are some legendary cars that are 4 doors coming out of Germany because they got the Autobahn. And out there, you need to have an Autobahn bruiser, especially if you need to get somewhere in a hurry. In Germany, you can do that. And when it comes to going speeds of 150 miles an hour and faster, this is the king. This is the car you want to be in. And I'll talk about that a little bit. And the reason why is the engine. The engine is special. Special in a way that unfortunately you can't really tap into very readily here in the US. Now, if you're swayed by the relatively low cost to buy an E60 M5, especially the earlier models, and they are cheap. They're 25 cents on the dollar for what they cost new. It's amazing. But there's a catch. So before I get into the specifics of cost, first let me tell you a little bit about what you're getting when you buy an E60 M5. So it's really about the engine, right? Well, it is quite an engine. And it sounds like an American V8 when it's at lazy engine speeds. And it's not the sound that you would expect a German sedan to make, which is kind of cool. It sounds throaty, it sounds angry, it sounds mean, but unobtrusive. And then you step into it, and at about 3,000 RPM, you start to sense its potency. Then at 4,000 RPM, it's clear something is going on under the hood. Then from 5,000 to 6,000 RPM, the power becomes intense. It starts to push your head back into the headrest. And then from 7,000 RPM, which most cars don't rev up to 7,000 RPM. Most redline at 6,000, 6,400 RPM. So from 7,000 RPM to redline at 8,250 RPM, it's like riding on a roller coaster where you're just sort of holding on for dear life. And I've compared it to being in a slingshot. It just throws you forward. You shouldn't, it's really cool. So what's unique about the engine, in addition to that it has so much power, is how it builds the power. So most muscle cars have 8 cylinders and they can't rev past 6,000 RPM like I was saying. This is extremely lightweight. I mean, I'm not going to get into the technical details. I have read a lot about this car and about this engine in particular. And I'm not a mechanic, I'm not an engineer, I'm an enthusiast, and I have some technical knowledge, but nothing like is required to adequately explain how this engine works and how it works as well as it does. There is a complex engine management system that is run by something like 70 computers. My mechanic told me there's 70 computers in this car. I assume they're not all for the engine, but it calculates precisely the cams, the valves, everything how it's supposed to go. It's a 5-liter, so it's a pretty sizable engine, 10-cylinder. And Very rarely are you going to see such a big engine with so many cylinders redline all the way up at 8,250 RPMs. It's a very high revving engine, and we truly will not be seeing anything like this again. It makes its power because it revs so high, and I watched a demonstration with an engineer, a BMW engineer, who helped develop the S85 engine, which is the V10 under the hood in this car. And he compared it to riding a bike. So if you're racing a bike up a hill, do you want to be in a high gear and focusing on your low end grunt? Or do you want to be in a lower gear and pedaling as fast as you can? Which is going to get you over the hill? Obviously, if anybody who's ever ridden a bike up a hill is going to be able to answer that question. You want to be in a lower gear, pedaling as fast as you can. And that is the philosophy behind this engine. And for the most part, you're not going to use that. You're not going to be in the higher RPMs very often. So the power delivery on this engine doesn't make sense in the US. And you've probably heard people talk about that before. And it's true. I very rarely get to tap into this engine's potential as an owner. I've had it for 2.5 years, and I've spent less than 5 minutes in the higher revs in the entire time I've owned the car, but I can tell you those few minutes were very good. So there's that philosophy that drives it, and I think it makes it special in terms of cars, racing engines. The philosophy of having a racing engine in a regular car goes back to the original E28 M5 that had the original M1 engine in it. And the S85 V10 is a worthy successor of that engine. So if I were to compare it to another car in its class, I would say the best counterpoint would be the Mercedes E63 AMG. And as it happens, I have driven one. It was interesting to drive it. I mean, technically, there are all these things that are great about the car, that are superior about that car in terms of luxury, in terms of gadgets and technology, and all things that I really don't care about. What I care about is how the car makes me feel, how it feels to drive, the suspension, the way it feels, the brakes, and the engine. And the engine on the E63 is amazing. It's really powerful at low RPMs, which is where you can use it every day, all the time. In the M5, it's kind of lazy until 3,000 RPM, and then it starts to pick up steam. And most of our time when we're driving is spent, if not below 3,000 RPM, below 4,000 RPM, and it's not for very long. So I get that, I do. But, yes, it's fast, but I didn't care. In this car, I care. I smile. I'm sure my kids are going to become car freaks just because they grew up seeing their daddy smile every time he punched the gas. Back to the E63. It's a solid German sedan with a crazy powerful engine in it, just like this one is. It has great suspension, great brakes, it has all those great things that an enthusiast would want to have. It doesn't have the heritage. It's not a detuned race car with 4 doors. I love how under the radar this car is. You see a regular E60 528i with 250 horsepower or something like that next to the E60 M5 that has twice as much power. Most people can't tell the difference. Most people don't care, but most people don't know the difference. And there's something very cool about that, in my opinion. So, I think, as an enthusiast, there's no comparison between the E63 and the M5. But that's my bias, that's my take on it. And everybody's different. And no opinion is wrong. So now on to the boring stuff, the costs, the reason that you're watching this video, apparently. Okay, so it's a 2008 model. When it was new, it was $100,000. It had 44,000 miles on it when I bought it. I paid 30,000 and change. I'm not going to tell you the exact number. Now it's at 61,000 miles. So I've put 17,500 miles on it, or about 7,500 a year. If I were to sell it today, I could probably get about 25 grand for it. And by most accounts, I mean, the car's, not even really broken in yet. So that's a lot of car for the money. Not that I would sell it. So my brother, David, had no major problems with the car. But he was under no illusions the car was expensive to maintain, and he gave me ample warning when I bought the car. If you're going to commit to owning this car, you just have to accept that it's going to cost more to operate. Everything is beefed up. Everything is engineered to the nth degree. It's all the best quality of everything. And I'll give an example, and it's a recent example and still a fairly painful one. I took my ABS module broke on the car, or it ran into problems and needed to be replaced. As it turns out, the brake module or ABS sensor is located behind the driver's side front wheel, and of course is exposed to the elements. Now, the reason that the BMW engineers had to put it there is because the engine's so damn big, and there's no room under the hood to put certain critical components, so they put them off to the side. And so 8.5 years later, the thing gets busted. I have to replace it. It was several $1,000s. This is not a repair that you would probably have in a normal car. The front brakes needed to be replaced, and these are gorgeous brakes. I stare at them every single day in admiration, and they are truly the best brakes I've ever used on a car. They will stop time. This is a 4,000-pound car, and it was engineered to stop abruptly at 150 miles an hour and above. So they are the most competent brakes I'll ever use in a car, and they have spoiled me, because I drive any other car and I'm just shocked at how much better they are in the M5 than any other car, including my M3. But they aren't cheap. What do you think a rotor on an M5 costs? A rotor on an M5 costs $400. Now on your Civic or regular car, you're going to be paying about $80 for a rotor. So you think about the difference in price for that repair. The cost of, you've got 9.5 quarts of the 10W60 synthetic oil. That's not a huge cost driver. There's the cost of the gas. It's 93 octane. So you have to get the good stuff, and you pay more for that. Driving around town, I average 9 miles per gallon when I'm on the highway. Overall, the life I've had the car, it's averaged about 13 miles per gallon. So it's very poor fuel economy. You have to replace the tires every 12,000 miles. So there are a lot of just regular maintenance issues that come up. But it's when you have to replace something major. I gotta say, when you have the room to get on it a bit, the way the engine pulls, it's like you're sitting on top of a rocket. And you can control the thrust with your hands and your feet. It's crazy exciting and totally worth it. Another thing that is common with the E60 M5 and with all of the later S engines, say an E92, E90 M3, the E46 M3, is the rod bearings have a tendency to burn up and become a major problem. If the rod bearings wear out, then your engine will wear out in very short order, and you have to replace the engine. So you don't want to do that. That's not really a major issue. I talked about it over and over and over with my mechanic, and he said, for the way you drive it, you don't have any concerns. For people who go and they spend all of their time in the high res, say if I were living in Germany and commuting every day at 180 miles an hour, then I would have a rod bearing issue and I would need to replace it. So that's a huge, huge, huge issue. Not that I want to downplay it, because if you don't do it right, it's a $1,500 job that could save you the cost of a $65,000 engine. So yes, you have to do the maintenance. But depending on the way you drive it, you may not need to do all of the maintenance. So there's something to be said for that, and something that you need to monitor. Now, when you consider its performance against the true sports cars of its day, so you've got the Lamborghini Gallardo, had a V10 with very similar specs. I've seen YouTube videos with a stock E60 M5 racing a V10 Gallardo and the M5 pulling ahead. You know, to see a four-door, timid-looking sedan beat a Lamborghini, it's pretty cool. So, you know, yes, you can buy a $100,000 car that will outrun a Lamborghini for $25,000. But again, there's that catch, right? So you still have to think in your head that you're maintaining a $100,000 car and that you need to prepare for that. So if you're looking at the cost to buy between the M5 and, say, a new Civic, you should get the Civic. You know, if you're worried about the cost, I would get an E46 M3 or even an E36 M3. Although in the States, we got the watered down engine. So I would get the E46. Plus, it's a little bit newer and they really don't cost that much now if you can find a good one. And I know that's the huge challenge. I would also look at the E39 M5. I've never driven one. It's definitely on my list, but I've never driven one. And, you know, a lot of people prefer the E39 to the E60. Personally, I like the look of the E60. I like the size of the E60. And I already have an E46. So, like, if I could have just one car, I think of the E39 as being the perfect mix of the E46 and the E60. It's got the best of both of them. You know, it's lightweight. It's got the agility of the E46 and some of the power of the E60. But in a perfect world, you have the E46 and the E60. But, you know, I realize this is not a perfect world. So I'll conclude with this. Yes, it is pricey to maintain. But will your Camry or Accord or Civic do this? Here we go. And will it do this? Didn't think so. And for the few minutes, a week or a month or whatever that I get to tap into it, it's totally worth it. One more thing. So I just got through driving the car home after, you know, shooting the video. The engine, the sound of that engine, it's so good. The way that around 4,000 RPM, the sound that those 10 cylinders make, it's totally unique, but it's just like there's something exploding up front. It's awesome. And I wanted to say, regarding the maintenance costs, last time I did a major service on the car is when I had the brakes done. Had all that service done, which you could probably buy a pretty nice used car for what all of that work cost. Leaving the shop, I probably looked like I'd just been hit by a Ram truck. And my mechanic said to me, he said, "Look, Brent, just go for a drive." And I said, you're right. I hadn't driven a car in a week and a half because they had it that long. And all of the worry, all of the concern just melted right off of me. So there's that.